Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This artist kicked off his journey beginning with a guitar in his hands and curiosity on his mind. Passionate about music beyond his own career, he is as driven as one can be. With a unique indie rock sound and distinct tone in his voice, hearing his music once will keep him from ever being forgotten. Welcome, Zach.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, to kind of kick things off, I always like to ask about kind of where your music journey all began.
I guess it began when I was, just a little kid taking guitar lessons. I picked it up when I was like 9 years old, and from there, I've been playing ever since. I got into singing, playing bass, a little bit of everything, and here I am now.
How did it kind of develop from guitar lessons to like writing your own stuff? Like, where did that kind of transition hit from just a musician to being somebody who's writing music and doing all that stuff?
So for me, I guess that started around like high school age. I'd been taking guitar lessons for a good while at that point, and I was lucky to have a teacher who really pushed creativity and kind of going beyond the bounds of what we thought was capable and like what I thought, from just learning songs and like, okay, done with this song, move on to the next one or chords or whatever. He, challenged me to be creative, come up with my own stuff. And I realized, writing these chord progressions, albeit pretty simple at the time, that I was like, wow, this is so fun. I love this. I want to do more with this. I want to be able to do not only like guitar but sing and do this and write my own songs. And I guess that kind of led to helping other people write their own songs and producing and engineering and all that. So, yeah.
So, and I mean, because it's not everybody that does the songwriting thing and the performance thing that also does their own like engineering and production. What kind of made you want to take that step and not just do the writing and put it out there, but like also do the other stuff and then also take that into helping out other people with like engineering their songs or producing their songs or what have you?
Yeah, it was, around that same time I had been doing my own stuff for a while and like kind of just, downloaded like I think it was Ableton Live 8 or 9, but it was like the light version and messing around with that when I kind of was, thinking, what do I want to do with my life? Like, what kind of career path do I want to take when I started considering music? And I was like, well, I really like this whole recording myself and, playing around in a DAW. Um, so I thought, you know what, maybe I'll give this a try. I like helping other people. I think I could be somebody that would help other people discover their passion for music and, help their music get heard. And that's when I kind of, fell in college. That's what I ended up majoring in was music technology. And yeah, I was lucky enough to kind of fall in love with that. Um, within my first year, I stuck with it, and now I do that for a living.
Um, so kind of I mean, since it is kind of all encompassing in the way that you do it, where you're taking the song essentially from start to finish, at least of your own stuff, and then also doing it for other people, um, how do you kind of find a balance between like putting all of this energy into like other people's creative works versus like taking the time and making sure you have the time to work on your own?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is honestly sometimes I don't. Sometimes it can be really challenging, but I try to stay very organized, write out everything I have to do. And yes, like if I'm getting paid for a job, that obviously has to come first. I need to make sure I'm getting my clients situated, doing all their stuff. But I find that a lot of times when I'm working on theirs and coming up with these ideas for like their songs or whether it be like mixing, mastering, that kind of stuff, it almost sort of inspires me to go back and work on my own things, hearing the things they come up with or that we can create together. It pushes me to want to make my own music and my own sound better and improve that. So it can be hard to find a balance, but I find that working on other projects with other creatives just kind of drives me to keep going with my own stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's kind of feeding into the whole like you're a product of your environment kind of deal. Like if you surround
Yeah.
yourself with doing that kind of work all the time, you're going to find yourself in a situation where it's influencing the stuff you're doing on your own time. Um, how do you kind of like do you ever collaborate on the like songwriting and like the actual like composition side of things with some of the people that you have like as clients doing production and engineering, or is it strictly like you're doing like this service, or like is it more a collaborative effort, or is it more like clearly they're paying you to do this one thing?
Yeah. Again, it kind of varies. A lot of the stuff that I was doing like for a while was more the latter, more of just like the strictly client, you
Hmm.
know, interactions. Just hey, here's like these tracks, or like hey, we already have the songs. I want you to record it, mix it, that kind of stuff. But I do get a good bit, and especially recently, it's kind of picked up more with like more productive stuff, which I definitely appreciate that maybe somebody they've gone out and listened to some of my stuff and say, hey, I like your sound. I want you to kind of incorporate that into the stuff I'm working on. Because that I love doing everything, but it can be the most rewarding, most fun when you get to produce a track and kind of start it from the baby stages, like do the writing and the composing, like you said. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think like being a part of it in any sort of way in the creative process is awesome, but I feel like it's even just that much cooler when you get to see it from this little like demo where it's just guitar and voice and then it becomes this big production. Like I feel like taking it to that full extent when you knew what it sounded like at its very early stages is just that more like rewarding.
Absolutely. It's just so, yeah, so like you said, it rewarding. Just you see it at the end and you're like, wow, I can't believe, the AB between where it was and where it is, and it's a fantastic feeling, really.
Um so what kind of drives you, because like clearly you're involved in more so in like in a general scope, like you're more involved in the like technical aspect or the production and the engineering. What kind of keeps you driven to pursue the whole artist side of things?
Yeah. Again, I think it's, a good blend of, like I mentioned before, working on other people's projects, but also just being around, these creatives. Like I'll play, play guitar shows. Like I have playing a Christmas show coming up with just like this fantastic group of musicians, and really just getting to be around them and kind of, pick their brains about this or that, and just playing different genres of music I don't have as much experience with. All that kind of culminates into, me as an artist and how I want to, be perceived as an artist with my music and with my sound. And, I guess through that combination, yeah, I lost my train of thought there, but
No, it's all good. Is there anything in particular that you think inspires a lot of your writing?
um, that's a good question. I don't know. I've never really thought about that too much. I think it's, a number of things, whether it be, the world we live in today, or maybe how I've been impacted by like friendships or relationships, stuff like that. Definitely, I think rubs off in a lot of the stuff I write.
Do you ever like find yourself in a situation where it's like, okay, this happened, and then like you just go directly to writing about it to kind of like whether it's to process it or just kind of like clear your head about it? Like, is it kind of like not a transactional kind of approach, but like something kind of occurs and then the result is you write a song about it?
Yes, and I think a lot of times those are the kind of songs that don't see the light of day as much, for me at least, where
Okay.
feeling those like intense emotions, and then the next day you wake up and you're like, I don't feel the same way I did when I wrote this
Mm.
last night or whatever, which could be a good or bad thing, I guess.
So that's interesting because I feel like a lot of at least the conversations I've had on the podcast or it's artists are like most of what I pull from is like personal experiences I've had, and you're saying kind of not necessarily the opposite, but in a way of like, oh, I might write about that, but that song will probably live and die in that 24-hour period.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that's, maybe just me being a little too overcritical. I mean, we've talked about it already, but just being from like the more technical side, there's a lot of times where if I'm working on something, I'm just, the next day I just pick it apart and being way too,
Hmm.
need to let the creativity out more than the technical side, but sometimes that doesn't happen. But yeah, I think sometimes it's a, really good thing, and that's where some of my best stuff comes from. But I guess sometimes maybe I don't feel as like those intense emotions that I did in the moment as much, and it kind of fizzles out, and it, is one of those projects that just sits on your desktop for like a year, and you're like, oh, what is like song three dot wave, you know?
Hmm.
Um, ends up being another one of those.
So, like, kind of looking at those and saying, okay, this isn't really anything. Is it like you're dismissing it more on the basis of that emotion isn't relevant to me anymore? Or is it more so like, okay, the song that I wrote when I was feeling that way, like, since it was so emotionally driven, just wasn't that good? Like, is it more of like a quality standpoint or like your connect, like how you connect to the song?
Yeah, I think a lot of times maybe it's a quality thing. And in that instance, I might go back and try to rework it. Like, okay, maybe I don't want to, maybe before like it was a slow kind of like ballady type song, but maybe I'm like, well, I still feel that way, but I don't know if this is the best way to approach it. And
Hmm.
oftentimes these songs, they start out very demo-y, just like not great vocals or just, these voice memo type things on your phone. But maybe I'll go back and re-record that, do some different stuff, and maybe work it instead of a, ballad. Maybe it should be something with a little more high energy, um, something like that. Maybe like more rock or like you were saying before, like that indie rock kind of style that I kind of gravitate towards.
Yeah. I mean, every song you write isn't going to be one worth necessarily putting out. So I totally get it. Um, how would you describe your music for somebody who's never heard it?
Hopefully good. No. I don't know. Yeah, I guess like indie pop rock um gets kind of inspired by I guess some like jazz elements in there a little bit as well. I guess I really like to pull from a lot of genres. I try to, there's definitely some that I like more than others, but I try to pull a little bit from everything, um, and use what I learn as an engineer working with a wide range of artists and incorporate that into my music. So hopefully there's a little something for everybody in there, or that just means you're gonna dislike everything but one element, but hopefully not.
Is there kind of going off of that then, is there a release or a song that you've put out that you think, or even one that is still waiting to be put out? Like, is there a song that you have that you would be like, okay, I have one song I can show to somebody to convince them that I'm worth like following, worth paying attention to? Kind of one song to sell them on you as an artist and your music. Do you know what that song might be?
Yeah, I would say that song is probably still on my desktop, kind of in the works, and hopefully we will see the light of day soon. But not that I love all the stuff that I have put out, and it holds a special place in my heart. But it's kind of going back to one of our previous questions, talking about the emotion and stuff, and maybe since those songs are a little older, I've changed, or the way I feel about them, or the things I'm talking about is a little bit different. I think some of the stuff I've been working on more recently and been just really inspired to work on kind of reflects where I am as an artist a little bit better. So hopefully soon. I don't know. Maybe by the time this is out, there will be new stuff. If not, check back soon, and hopefully it'll be there.
Does this unreleased song have a name yet?
It's sort of. I don't know if it's going to be the. It's one of those ones where it's gone through a couple of different iterations, but
Hmm.
I think this name is gonna stick. But I'm not. I can't give away any spoilers yet.
Do you think that the stuff that you've already released is reflective of like your sound, if you will, or is it more like this is kind of just where things have started and more so like the song that you're talking about being reflective of you as an artist? Is that more kind of the sound that you would say is Zach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the song that's, in the works right now is more so reflective of where I'm at. And I think the ones that are up are still, there's a big part of my sound in there, and I really appreciate those songs and like where I was, and I think it's important to, have those up there. I think that's a big part of my journey of, my sound, as we're saying. But I don't know that it necessarily reflects where I'm at now. So I think you'll be able to hear, kind of the journey that I've taken as a, musician and artist with the release of this next one. Um, and hopefully, enjoy all of them the same.
Do you think there's been more development on the like sonic side of things, like the production and everything, and how you've written the songs, or is it more so like lyrically things have really like changed, like how you approach the like lyrics of the song, or both?
I would say both. And definitely, sonically and the production and everything behind it. I feel like I've put a lot more time and effort, and also, I've just been doing this for longer, so I have more experience and I'm able to, dive into it a little more in a more mature way. But then also lyrics, that was something that was and still kind of is difficult for me to write. Like lyrics, I don't know. I try to write like poems and poetry to kind of help out with that, and I think that, has definitely helped improve me as like a lyricist. But that's still something that I find myself just constantly trying to work at and improve. But I think I've come to a good place with this song. And gosh, I hate to sing this song and keep talking about it when it's not out there, but I do feel like, I've made some great strides with this one.
Absolutely. I mean, the best thing to do is just kind of move forward. Like I always have said, look, if you're looking back on the stuff that you've already put out and thought, not necessarily that it's bad, but that like it's not nothing comparing to what you're doing now, that's a good thing because your old music shouldn't be the same quality and level in your mind as your new stuff, because that really just says that you've stayed in one level and you haven't progressed at all. So if you're doing something new and different, you're starting to sound more the way you want to sound, you're heading in the right direction.
For sure. I think it's to kind of speak to that for a second. I think it's so important too to we're always so focused with where we're going as musicians and, the next job, the next gig, the next piece of gear, whatever, but it's kind of important to look back and say, like, okay, a couple years ago when I started or weeks ago, whatever, like, did I think I would have been here? Like, look how far you've come, appreciate the journey, and, appreciate those songs that you've written. Don't take them down off of Spotify or Apple Music because, they don't hold up to your standards now. I get the, the want to, or maybe you feel like you should, but I don't know, appreciate what you did with those songs and what they've kind of done for you.
Absolutely. I'm a little guilty of that because I did take my like debut album down, but that's with the intention of reproducing it. I didn't really know what I was doing then, so we're making it sound better at least.
Gotcha. That's
Not
a
tam-
different
not
piece.
tampering too much. But yeah. A fun question I like to ask is if you could open for any artist, who would it be?
Ooh. Uh, I would, I think it's kind of a toss up for me, but I would say probably Coldplay, just because that is, a group that really I kind of shaped my sound when I was younger. I listened to just a lot of them, a lot of their like early 2000s stuff, and I still, I'm a fan today. But some of their older stuff that really shaped me, I played a lot of that growing up, and I think, yeah, just to be able to share the stage with somebody who kind of inspired me so much would be, yeah, that'd be a dream come true. Gosh.
Was there, you said it was a toss up. Did you have somebody else in mind as well?
Yeah, the other one would probably be I would probably have to say John Mayer, just because, and I feel like this is such a cliche guitar player answer, but I don't care. I absolutely, love him. His phrasing and just playing overall is kind of something that I aspire to get to that level one day. So to be able to share the stage with him would be awesome.
I feel like if you kind of combined their two sounds, somewhere in that like wheelhouse would be kind of where your stuff fits. So that actually kind of I feel like makes a lot of sense.
Oh, thank you.
Um, what is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists? Like what is it that makes like what is it that kind of sticks to your name that maybe other artists don't kind of have? Or like what is it that kind of makes you stand out in the crowd essentially?
Yeah. Um, I would say with me, I'm not afraid to change it up. Like, a lot of the stuff, and again, you'll probably hear this with my other unreleased music, which is hopefully to be released. But there's a lot of different elements, like I was kind of saying before. I like to pull from different things that I'm listening to, whether, like we said, like Coldplay, John Mayer, there's always going to be a lot of that in there. But, maybe I'm listening to like some pop or some hip hop or tree, whatever. Maybe I like to pull different elements from that and kind of incorporate that into my music. And I think that's something that you don't see as much. And I don't know, maybe some people are afraid that, their audience might not like it, but I think it's all about, experimenting and kind of creating, not just, finding a sound and sitting there, but creating it and pushing the boundaries of what you know. So I think that's probably something that I do a little different than others.
How do you approach separating your like the influence of these artists from like your own originality? Meaning like how do you make sure that you're not taking too much inspiration from something that already exists and make sure that you're doing it in your own way and in your own light, and so it is something new and different rather than just another John Mayer, you know what I mean?
Right, right, John Mayer too. Um, yeah, I try to change up, my process. Like a lot of times when I was just starting out, I grab the guitar, and I still tend to just grab the guitar, but I try to, attack a song from different angles. Like maybe this time, like I'll start out with lyrics and kind of, shape a song around that, around like these melodies, or maybe I'll, come up with something on the keys, like a piano or a MIDI keyboard, something like that. And try to keep it fresh in that way, um, rather than just kind of stagnating.
Do you think, because I kind of do the same thing, do you think that when you like the songs that you approach, let's say from the guitar, do you think that those kind of sound similar to each other more so than like a song you started on guitar sounds similar to one on piano? Like, do you think that where your songwriting for a particular project originates, what other ones that originate the same way, do you think that those sound more similar to each other just because you wrote them the same way?
I think yes, and I think obviously there's a lot you can do on one instrument, like the guitar, the piano. You can do so many different things on there. But for me at least, where my mind kind of tends to gravitate, they're usually similar processes, and not it's not like an identical song. There's gonna be a lot of differences. But if I start with a guitar for two songs, and I start with the piano for two songs, I feel like yes, the guitar songs tend to be more closely related because they started the same way.
Do you think that they're similar like collectively, or is it more so like the instrumentation kind of sounds similar because you started them with the same instrumentation, or do you like think that like it also kind of bleeds into the lyrics?
I don't know so much about the lyrics, but I think at least the instrumentation kind of bleeds into itself a little more. Just because if I'm starting out with the guitar, and maybe I'm doing chords or like some lead stuff on there, then if I add in like piano or Rhodes, something like that, that's gonna tend to be more of a pad. Where I start out, on that, like let's say Rhodes for example, maybe with the starting out on the Rhodes or like a whirly or something like that, I would have that be more of like a highlight of the song, and maybe the guitar is a little more passive, a little more in the background. I'm not relying on that as much. Um, Lyrically, though, I think kind of varies from song to song. I think it's more so the instrumentation.
So you think that you can, like, listening back, you can kind of tell, okay, this is how this one started, this is how this one started, whether you like whether you remember it or not. You can kind of tell just by the sound of the songs that this started with guitar, this didn't.
Probably, yeah. And again, I kind of know myself, so I think hopefully other people can't hear that. Like, oh man, like this is just another one of Zach's like guitar songs, or whatever. But I kind of know myself pretty well, and I can sit down and listen to it and say, oh yeah, yeah. So I definitely started with this and kind of built around it for for better or for worse.
No, it makes sense. You, I mean, you can vary up your approach as much as you want, but if you change it too much, then you're gonna end up in a space of, why did I take it this way? Because it's not like it's, you can only go so far while still kind of knowing yourself and knowing how you can get it done. So
Yeah,
there's, I mean, then you're one artist. You're not gonna write something that's over here and then something that's over here. Like, you want to kind of have that narrowed sound of things. So kind of
right,
having that sense of, oh, these sound similar isn't the worst thing in the world.
right.
What impact do you want to have with your music, with your artistry? What kind of mark do you want to make?
Yeah. Well, one, obviously, the biggest impact I want to have is, I just want people who listen to it to have a good time, have fun listening to it. If that's all they get out of it, I'm totally fine with that. If they get a couple minutes of enjoyment or maybe distract them from something tough that's going on in their life, then, I've done my job. Just kind of help you get through your day. But at a deeper level, I would love for people to kind of hear this and get inspired to, make their own music like I was when I was younger, and, kind of how I got into this journey and got the ball rolling. If I could have that impact on some people, I think that would be incredible.
That's awesome. Um, that kind of actually leaves us with the big overarching question that is the name of the podcast. Why music?
Yeah, I mean, why not music? Music is great. Um, it's helped me get through some, tough times, and, music, guitar, that's always kind of been there for me, and it's been such a constant in my life. And, to be able to take that to the next level and help other people achieve this goal or achieve this dream, I think is just fantastic. So yeah, why not music? It's great. If you haven't tried it out, try it out. I feel like I'm like a sales rep for music right now, but seriously, yeah, music is incredible. Um, I love it.
One last thing, actually. Since you are like songwriter, artist, engineer, producer, all those things, what in your mind, what title comes first? Like, if you're trying to, if you're like identifying yourself, like you're writing your little LinkedIn bio and you, like, everybody puts all the things that they are, which one would you put first? Like, what do you think is the most representative of you and all that you do?
I would have to say probably audio engineer, and I guess just because that's what I do work wise most of the time. I also I teach like lessons and stuff like that. And I'm an artist and all these other things, but I think engineer kind of describes best what I do most often. But that doesn't necessarily mean, at the end of the day, maybe I would prefer artist to come first. I feel like a lot of people would, because I don't know, it's always so fun working on your own music and getting that out there. So much more rewarding. But that being said, I would still have to stick with audio engineer. I think that kind of where I'm at in my career right now, that's the main focus.
Do you think one day it will be artist?
Maybe, hopefully, that would be pretty cool. Maybe one day I'll be up there with John Marin and Coldplay, but I guess we'll see what the future holds.
Awesome. All right. Well, that concludes this episode of the Why Music podcast. Check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for watching or listening, however you choose.